previous generations of youth have always faced very tough labor markets during recessions and recoveries. The youth today are not necessarily unique from that perspective. Every generation of youth faces those sort of tough labor market conditions coming out of university, if you happen to be one of the unlucky few to graduate during a recession. In fact, you could probably argue that those who graduated in the 90s had it actually even worse than those today. But there are a number of unique challenges that the current generation of youth face that previous generations have never faced. One of them, one of the major ones, is that they're facing competition from many more different sources than perhaps previous generations of youth have. In addition to facing competition from your own age cohort, from other graduates, for example, you're facing competition from people overseas. Canada's labor market is very globalized. Anybody can apply for a job that happens to be posted online, and youth today face stiff competition from highly educated, highly skilled people from all over the world. In addition to that, probably the most significant unique challenge or competitive force today is that of older workers. We are seeing magnificent job growth among people who are 55 and over, and that is something that we have not seen in Canada's history. So, and some evidence does suggest that they're vying for similar, if not the same jobs. Jobs in the retail sector, for example, notionally jobs that a lot of students or younger people would take. A lot of older workers who are perhaps retired are getting back into the labor market because they are healthier and have better health outcomes, and they wish to continue working, and they're pushing back retirement, for example. A lot of people are getting back into the labor market, and so young people today are facing that very unique competitive challenge. So the reason why we care about this, and I mean, if you sort of think about it from the historical perspective, if every generation faces this, then why should we care about it? The real issue is what economists refer to as labor market scarring or economic scarring, is when you graduate and you are unable to find gainful employment and you have to take a survival job, for example, your skills tend to degrade, or graduate skills will tend to degrade. If those degrade for long enough, it is much more difficult for you to integrate yourself back into the sector that you wish to get into in the first place coming out of your post-secondary education. And the data suggests that there's a lifetime impact on your earnings. So your lifetime earnings is lower than had you graduated just a few years before or a few years prior. And so if you think about it from a broad perspective, this is an entire generation of the labor force that's facing this scarring effect, which would have very significant impacts on sort of Canada's long-term economic growth if they're not able to use their skills and their training to their full extent coming out of university.